Right, the Reds, it's Talking Reds Fridays, Talking Reds, and a new face for Talking Reds today. Got Cathy Long with me. Cathy, I guess first of all, you're a big Red, and people might follow you on Twitter and stuff like that. I mean, I know who you are, but I'm just thinking some people who are watching might not, and you've done some interesting work in the world of football. Do you want to just briefly touch on stuff that you've done so you can tell people you're dead interested?
Oh yeah, fascinating. I mean, I got involved, I suppose, in working in football. Actually, just I mean, like a lot of people, through being a fan, but actually after Hillsborough, and just got really passionate about safety of fans and how fans were being treated. I was very young, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sort of grew from there. Really, I joined the Football Supporters Association. I was involved in loads of campaigning, and then suddenly you're finding yourself in these FA boardrooms with like pictures of Bert Miller chip on the wall and all of that. That's one for the older ones amongst us. And it really was like very staid in those days. Like it made me want to be like a child and sort of draw moustaches and all the portraits. Because it was sort of so like, it was classic sort of fusty FA stuff. And then I worked on Euro 2000 on the Fans Embassy. Bit of a challenge working with England fans, not much of an England fan myself, so that was an interesting one to work on. And then I found that I was freelancing, doing different stuff. Like I was working, like doing stuff for the FSA. Sometimes the Premier League asked me to do bits of work for them. I was doing these like focus groups when they were very first talking to fans, when they first established the league, and Rick Parry was in charge and was saying, look, we need to know what fans are thinking about this whole new thing that is the Premier League. So we did a lot of that. But I was turning up at meetings and people were having to say, like, who are you representing today? Did little bits of work for Liverpool, and they'd be like, well, are you representing Liverpool or the fans or the Home Office or whoever today? So the Premier League said, come in and work for us. And I kept saying no. Because it's much nicer to sort of shout from the outside. You know what I mean? It's like, it's easier to complain, tell them what they're doing wrong, tell them how they should be listening to fans, tell them what the fans want, and I thought, I don't know if I want to go over to the dark side. But I did. It just sort of had a mad train journey actually back from London to Liverpool after I met with the Premier League, and my head was wrecked. And I got up the next morning and thought, you know what, I'll do it, because if I don't go in, get on the inside to try and change things, then someone else will, and I might not like what they're doing. I thought, do I trust someone else to do this job? So then I went to work for the Premier League. It was about 15 years, and basically set up their fan services team and really working with the clubs on getting them to understand about fan liaison. I mean, it's weird when I look back, because at that stage, no one was really employing anyone to talk to fans, which in a way was good, because it meant if you did get a meeting with a club, you were usually meeting the board or the chief exec. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, really. Once you had supported liaison officers come in, it was good, because these people were coming in whose job it was to work with the fans. So they were going to make sure that's what they did, But it also sometimes meant like clubs could treat it as a bit of a buffer, I think.
You've done some really interesting stuff, and obviously you're doing stuff with City of Liverpool as well. But all that aside, you are a Red first and foremost. You go to games, or you do, you do in normal times like the rest of us. And we have got some news today. The big news to talk about today is this was expected, really, but Rhian Brewster is set to complete a £23.5 million move to Sheffield United today. And a deal has been agreed, and Sheffield United want to get it through as soon as, really, so that he can play on Sunday against Arsenal. There's meant to be a buyback option in there as well, which will stand for the next 3 years, and also Liverpool have negotiated a 15% slice of any future sale. There seems to be some mixed feelings on this one, Cathy, in terms of, I think a lot of people thought, Rhian had talent, obviously, was going places. They wanted maybe to see him do that in a red shirt. It now looks like that is obviously not going to be the case. The other side of the coin, I guess, is he's 20 years old. He scored 11 and 22 for Swansea, which has sort of really boosted his profile. But in terms for Liverpool, only four appearances for Liverpool, none of them in the Premier League. He started against the MK Dons in the League Cup. He played in that mad 5-5 with Arsenal. He was a sub against Everton in the FA Cup, and he come on in the Community Shield, and that's it. That's all we've seen of him in the first team. So I'm a little bit like, how can anyone be that angry when you've seen him that little? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's weird. I think it's strange, isn't it? There's certain players that I think when they're coming through the ranks, that has a buzz around them, you know, and people start talking about them very early. So I think for a long time, we get very attached to these players, and it's like we're attached to their names before we're even seeing them very much, you know. And people will be talking about players in the pub, and then you'll say like, well, who's actually seen them? And it's about one person in our group that's been going to the youth games, you know. My mate Paul, he's always the one who's been seeing them. The rest of us haven't, you know. And I think, I mean, I remember people talking about, I remember meeting Steve Highway at a Football Supporters Association meeting years ago, and everyone was talking about Michael Owen when he was at primary school, you know, and he's like, we've just got this lad in. And so we were excited then, but he said to us then, he said, he's not the best lad we've just got this other lad in, lad from Hayton.
Gerard.
And I was like, what's his name? Gerard. I was like, we're going to remember that name. So, you know, there's certain players, I think if they get talked about when they're very young, we get an emotional attachment to them.
Yeah.
When we haven't actually seen them play that much. And I think we all felt the same about Brewster. We were hearing about him and it just sounded like this really exciting talent. And actually, sometimes it's another lad that comes through the ranks that we've not been getting a buzz about, that actually is the one that will do it, you know. And I mean, I'd love to have seen Brewster stay because I think I felt that attachment to him. But you can't keep everyone.
Exactly, and it's really
big wages. It's a lot of money to be keeping players. You've only can have a certain number in your squad, and I think we have to be harder about it these days and go, well, you know, who else is there that is, you know, that is at that level but better.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to bring up the attachment because I think that's what it is. And, you know, for the likes of Edwards, Klopp, Linders and the rest of them, they've got to take that emotional stuff out of the equation and do the hard-headed business stuff. And £23.5 million for a 20-year-old kid, that's the 8th most expensive sale in Liverpool's history. You know, so when you put it in that context, it's quite mad to be getting that money for this lad. And also it seems clever, doesn't it, the clauses that they've put in there.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I like is I do think they're being really smart about these now. Like it seems for a while, you know, we were, I don't know if this is still the case, but certainly in recent years, you know, we were the club that paid agents the most to get rid of players.
Yeah.
And that was always a stat that sort of really like rankled with me, that we were paying money to get rid of people. But I think we've got really smart about doing good deals now when players go, you know, and I think that also helps in terms of the fans' confidence in how these things are being done. You know,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we should a
sensible deal in the end, you know, much as we'd love players like that to stay.
We should have that confidence in them now, I think, shouldn't we? Because I think if you look at the big picture under Jurgen Klopp, you know, ins and outs, there's not much to grumble about really in terms of the business Liverpool have done.
And I think we know as well, I think because they are sort of hard-headed about it, actually, it means that we do have that trust and faith that they are really at least basing their decisions on the right things. You know, you can never quite know whether a player is really going to make it. Some players have amazing stats and just don't have it mentally to be the player that they could be. You know, I mean, I think we've seen that with a few of ours, you know, but where players don't quite fulfill their potential, and you can never be sure about those things. But, you know, there's plenty of managers that we know will be signing players because of relationships with agents, you know, we'll be doing all sorts of deals that really are about their relationships in whatever country they're from, or, you know, and bringing in people that often are sort of yes men for them.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about Jurgen and his team is they'll happily be challenged.
Yeah, it does look that way. And there's expected to be some more business as well. No ins for anyone getting too excited, but more out. So last night, of course, we were knocked out of the League Cup by Arsenal in the penalty shootout. A big miss was Xherdan Shaqiri, and the manager was asked about it afterwards. And he didn't really sort of pull any punches. He made it fairly obvious that they're talking to someone, whoever that might be, is quite serious about buying the player. And so they didn't want to take that risk. There's various reports today. No one seems to have nailed who it is yet. We're just getting stuff like it's clubs in Italy, basically. But it does look like he could have now played his last game for Liverpool. And he's another one, isn't he, where there's sort of like there's an emotional attachment because he scored against United, he scored against Everton, he teed up a goal in the Barcelona game. And there's something about him as well, isn't there? There's something eminently likable about Xherdan Shaqiri.
Yeah, there is. He's one of those sorts of cult heroes. I'm always fascinated by those players that, you know, we've had other players that never get a song or anything, but they're just really solid and have been amazing for the club, and yet they don't seem to get sort of really written into our history. you know, and yet we get players. I mean, Gossi is an obvious one where, you know, he was a great player, but he had his faults. But now, you know, it's partly because he's just such a big red still. And I think it's a little bit the same with Shakiri, that he's a bit of a cult hero, but he was always going to be a big player.
Yeah.
I liked him before he signed for us, like before he went to Stoke. I remember thinking, oh, that's a player that I would have liked to see us sign. But again, I think there are players that suited us at that stage in our development, but aren't going to get a game now.
Yeah.
In a way, it's a good thing if a player that does have that ability, but isn't always going to do it for 90 minutes in a game is moving. So yeah, you go with my blessing, really, you know.
Yeah, I think the same. I think most will surely say that. I mean, he cost Liverpool 12.75 million when we got him in from Stoke. He's made the notable contributions that I mentioned, really. And, you know, there were loan offers for him last January. And to be fair to Klopp, it seemed that he kept him round because he wanted them to be part of the title win, of the celebrations, of that kind of thing. But now, you know, he's reached a stage now where he's of a certain age. There's interest in him. You know, he only made, I think it was 2 starts last season. And there's been loads of times as well, hasn't it, where even when he's been on the bench, they haven't turned to him for whatever reason. And a bit like Brewster, you do wonder whether stylistically Klopp and his team think something about the pair of them isn't quite right for what they want to do.
It was always a strange one with Shaqiri, wasn't it? Because on the one hand, you tend to think of him as this very hard-working player. And yet he's got this reputation for being lazy.
I know.
You know, players who trained with him at Stoke talked about him being lazy and not really putting it in a training. I remember thinking, well, that's not a Klopp player. Like, how are we signing somebody who's got that reputation, you know? So it's always, I think I've always had a question mark about him. And he's not one that you thought he's going to come off the bench and you really got excited and thought he's going to change this game. He's going to do something for us. You thought more, he might put a really good ball in. We might get a free kick that he scores. You know, something might happen. But it wasn't like you get that sort of buzz around the crowd.
Yeah.
Coming on, he might do something.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Origi, isn't it? Like, you know, Origi might come on and do his thing of coming on in the last 10 minutes and scoring a couple of wonder goals or something. But equally, he might be completely anonymous.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he might just frustrate and give the ball away, you know.
Yeah.
And do a stupid short run up for a penalty, but we won't go into that.
Well, we have got to sort of mention that, I think. I mean, we have done the post-match pints and the post-match podcast and all stuff like that, so we don't want to dwell too much on going out of the League Cup. But I guess the question around it is, how bothered are you? Because, you know, what I see across the fan base is people, you know, it's another emotional thing, I guess, because when we were talking about it last night, I was like, well, the first game I ever went to at Anfield was a League Cup game. It was called the Rumbelows Cup then. And, you know, so I've sort of got that little bit of emotional attachment. And, you know, we had that run in the 80s where we seemed to just win it every year. And it meant something then, whereas I think it's so devalued now that most people are just kind of like, if you're going to go out to one, go out to this one.
Yeah. I mean, I think the League Cup is massively important when you're in it.
Yeah.
And the minute you're not in it, it really is like,
yeah.
What was that? What did we do yesterday? Oh God, yeah, it was the match. You know, it is a bit like, yeah, you know, whatever. I think, and especially this season, you know, it's weird. I didn't want to sort of feel differently about this season, but I also think we have to. You know, we're going to have so many games in a shorter period of time. It's going to be more challenging than any other season, really. So I think I'm less bothered this season, much as I would like us to win a domestic cup. You know, even today, I was like, I'm actually quite glad we haven't got a cup tie against City coming up.
Yeah, I think there was something with that, wasn't there?
The fish to fry, you know.
Yeah, and when you saw when it was as well, so, you know, it was Manchester City, and it would have been either the 21st or the 22nd of December, smack in the middle of a mad run of fixtures, and you sort of like, I think it's quite easy to sell it to yourself of, we're better out of it.
It is. I mean, and I think this tends to, it feels like it devalues it, but I think actually what I like about the League Cup is that you do get the chance to see those other players.
Yeah.
You know, and I love it for that. Like, I love going to those games. I loved going to Milton Keynes last year and seeing some of the youngsters play and stuff. And, you know, you don't get to see that if you're not in that cup.
Yeah.
So I do often think it's a good opportunity and a great opportunity for them to be playing in a competitive match, you know, alongside Van Dijk and Milner and the others. Because you can see that's what Klopp was doing with the game last night was, you know, this is a chance for me to integrate my first team and some of these youngsters together in a match and see if that works, see if they've understood how we need them to play, you know.
And there's a few
it's a
impressive.
shame we don't get another opportunity for that. But to be honest, playing Man City in December, we might have ended up fielding a stronger team anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a few people that impressed last night as well, wasn't there? Which I thought was good. You know, if we're looking for positives, obviously Reece Williams, Nico Williams, Gruitch, who's likely to go. Southampton apparently interested in, but he impressed as well. And as you say, it's sort of nice, isn't it, to see some of those players? I mean, it's nice for Nico after the sort of stick he's taken. I think it was nice for Reece Williams because when he played against Lincoln, he looked all right, but a few times he looked a little bit shaky. Whereas last night, in a very short space of time, he seems to have gone up quite a few levels already to the point where you're like, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing him again. He looks decent.
Yeah, and it's hard to know, isn't it? But I sort of wonder for some of the youngsters coming in, is it easier for them to be integrated into the first team when they're not playing in front of a crowd?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's harder. Maybe it's just all too strange, you know. But that's, it has made me wonder if that's a possibility for some of those players. It's been even more of an opportunity to integrate them because it's a bit like training, but it's not, it's at Anfield and it gets them used to playing at Anfield. Hopefully they'll get the shock of their lives where they then play in front of 50-odd thousand.
I know, which hopefully is soon as well. I mean, it is Aston Villa this weekend, Sunday evening. And I guess, Liverpool win there and we're all right again, aren't we? I mean, that's the one we really want, isn't it? What are your thoughts on the Villa game? For me, it's a shame straight off. As soon as Villa's mentioned, it's like, that's one I would have gone to. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would have gone to Villa away.
Yeah. And, we found a really good pub. And for years, we've been trying to find a good pub to go to for Villa. I can't even remember the name of this pub now, but a proper old Victorian pub that had been restored. And it was just only about 10, 15 minutes walk from the ground and it was perfect. And we all had, the last time I went, actually, I didn't go last season. I think I was ill, but I went to the 6-0.
Yeah.
And it was just a glorious day. I think it was my birthday. And it was just like, everything was perfect. Walked into the ground and somebody bought too much beer and literally walked in, got through the turnstile and someone handed me a beer. And it was like, this day's going to be good. It was like, we found a great pub. The sun's shining, it's my birthday. I've got a free beer. And then we scored 6 goals. It was like, so yeah, I'm gutted not to be there. It's one of those that I think, we all like a good away day at Villa.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just feel the whole fixture list is strange for me now because I'm so used to looking at, we'll go to Villa that weekend. You think of the Villa mates, as well, that you'll meet up with.
Yeah.
Like most people, you've all got mates who support other teams that you're going to see at the game, and suddenly that, like, you're looking ahead over the next few weeks, and all of that isn't happening. The matches are happening, but it feels empty somehow still.
Yeah, it is a bit like that, and especially last season as well, the way we won, the manner of the victory, the late goals and everything else. I
grind last season, wasn't it? We really had to grind it out. So I'm hoping it's going to be easier this season than it was. That'd be nice. I mean, Villa, I think they've come on a bit, haven't they? I think they obviously struggled last season. But it feels as though they've got a new confidence from having stayed up, actually. That it was such a source of relief that they've all gone, right, well, we don't want to be in that situation again,
Yeah. And this time we will have Fabinho. Everyone was absolutely sweating last season because we didn't have Fabinho because he was on the yellow card tightrope. But this season you would expect him to be there in the midfield, which I think is an added bonus. The other thing I think which is a bit of a shame and is missing from it is that I almost think that we've developed a tiny little bit of beef with Villa. I wonder whether it stems from when they knocked us out the FA Cup and, under Rodgers.
Yeah.
But there's just a little bit of needle there, which I quite like.
Yeah, I know. There's a bit of an edge there now, isn't there? That I don't think we've had for a long time, really, with Villa.
Yeah.
I remember being at a game, and it was it the last game of the season? Oh God, it's probably going back decades. It was really sunny, and literally people were falling asleep in the stands. Some of my mates we were looking around and going, there's literally people falling asleep in the sun here. You sort of felt like the Villa game was just going to be one of those, we'll go and have a good day out. But, and it's thinking it's going to be easy on the pitch and we'll just sort of coast through this. But yeah, it doesn't feel like that, especially after last season.
No, there's a bit of an edge now.
A bit of an edge, And you always want that bit of an edge, don't you? It's like with teams like Leeds or whatever. You always used to say this when I worked at the Premier League. If you created your perfect Premier League, You actually, for us, you wouldn't have had teams like Norwich and Ipswich in because no one hates them except each other.
Yeah.
You know, and you
That's
need
too far.
teams that you've got a bit of a needle with because you're not more interested in going to the game because you love your club more on the day they're playing Leeds or Man United or Everton. It's just because you dislike the opposition more.
Yeah.
If you dislike the opposition, it's a bit like Fulham, Reading, you know, nice clubs.
Yeah. No, definitely. It's all part of it, isn't it? Well, let's hope we
Yeah.
can recreate a little bit of it from our living rooms or whatever. But we have got Villa this weekend, and as usual on the Anfield app, we'll be doing all the usual stuff. So there will be a hot mic, which is sort of alternative commentary, if you like, around the game. If you don't fancy watching Sky or BT's commentators, which I can't remember which side it's on this weekend, and then all the usual stuff afterwards as well. So post-match video, post-match podcast, all the stuff on the website and the socials as well. Cathy, thanks very much for coming on this morning and chatting about the Reds. Hopefully we're celebrating victory on Sunday evening, and we'll get you on again soon.
All right, cheers. Bye for now.
Up the Reds, that's been Talking Reds.